individuals commenting about there's just something about you. There is a aura I cannot quite put my finger on. Something has changed in you. You are glowing. What's interesting to know is this idea of conserving sexual energy is not a new one. My friends, I've been reading from one of my favorite books, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which essentially is a manual for the study and practice of yoga. Yoga not in the sense of this Western poisoned way of yoga of contorting body shapes and warrior poses, but what Master Patanjali says in this manual is also known as union. There is a duality in this world, up and down, left and right, dark and light, and yoga is simply the alignment of these two intrinsic characteristics of this world. So much so that you will be leading a life that is harmonious and, as the Taoist would say, walking with the Tao or walking with God. I want to touch on a particularly interesting chapter that I came across yesterday evening, and it is regarding a topic I talk a lot about on this channel, semen retention and conserving your sexual energy. It is number 38 on the portions of practice in this book, and it is called By One Established Incontinence, Vigor is Gained. By getting established in continence or celibacy, we simply save energy. Virya means the vital energy. When there is no loss of virya, we gain energy. This runs congruent with a lot of practices, a lot of YouTubers that say once you begin to go on this path, that the first benefit, the first noticeable consequence you get of conserving your sexual energy is simply energy. And this runs true for me. And if I can just invite you to consider and be mindful of the temperament you have following a sexual encounter or, to be quite frank, ejaculation, you will immediately notice a diminishment in your capacity to be able to articulate yourself well, to perhaps even perform in the gym, and generally carry yourself with full life force energy. If we are not strong mentally and physically, we can never gain real spiritual wealth. The main cause for the present chaotic condition among the young is ignorance around virya. In Western culture, can't say too much about the East, we have a very degenerative approach to what is commonly known in Hinduism as virya, life force energy. We do not value this substance as much as our Eastern brothers do, and it is showing its effect or manifesting its effect in our spiritual wealth, because they often say, and I often say, and if this hasn't been paraphrased, then perhaps I can coin this, is that the Westerners live in material wealth, but spiritually in poverty. And conversely, the Eastern brothers live spiritually wealthy, but materialistically poor. I thought that was a very interesting observation to make. And this all comes from this ignorance regarding virya. The chapter goes into this very interesting idea of how we can begin to demonstrate our love for someone, and how it is not always in the ways that we would commonly associate how to share love. We often associate having sex with our partners as showing love, where in fact we're conflating aspects of that with pleasure. I'll give you an example. So young people say, when you love somebody, how can you stop giving? But out of love, they do not know what to give. Sometimes they give venereal diseases. They lose their health and spoil their health because of the ones they love. Can you say that you love me and completely drain my blood and poison my system? For example, if you have a child, if you love a child, will you make the child eat a whole box of candy? That isn't love. Okay, that's a short aspect of giving the child small amounts of pleasure. But you know the candy isn't good for the child. You need to be very diligent in how you communicate to the child and allow him to have very small but infrequent pleasures in life. And the same is in regards to brahmacharya. Now, that word brahmacharya, I should have prefaced in the beginning, regards to this idea of continence, moderation, keeping the sense strong and calm in relation and congruency with creative energy. The seminal fluid gives strength and stamina to the brain and nerves. Nervous debility is caused by a lack of stamina because it has all been drained away. Men watching this video can attest to that fact. Moving on. This fluid is our life force. If stored properly, it can bring a lot of energy. When absorbed into the system, it is transformed into prana. Okay? Conserved, without much prana, we can never give anything to anyone. Just as only a fully charged battery can give power, never a weak one. I really think that kind of encompasses the rationality from which we should proceed to engage in this practice. And that was, in fact, the rationality that convinced me, or was the deciding factor in why I would be more conservative to when I would dispel my sexual energy. It really is, as that analogy points out, having an understanding that this fluid can be used for other gain apart from immediate gratification. And if transmuted intelligently, you can see its power, its energy manifest in things like your financial endeavors, your health, fundamentally, and I would say that's the first value, and even your ability to retain and digest information. Observing brahmacharya, we can build up this energy. A yogi should keep this in mind always. Yoga is not like teaching history or geometry. Teachers, in a way, must transmute a life force current into others. And how can they proceed to do this if they're weak? Following the parallels in a lot of religion, be it Hinduism, be it Buddhism, be it even Catholicism, you can see a similarity in how the individuals that really study the scripture have practiced some of these things like celibacy, some of these things like retention. And it is not a consequence of practicing asceticism. It is an understanding that they must be seen as high energy individuals that can articulate very powerful spiritual concepts to those wishing to seek guidance. So how can you even begin to respect some of these yogis, some of these high-level spiritual gurus, if they are spiritually weak? Moving on. With this saved energy, he or she can grasp things well. The brain power is more dynamic. So regarding and referring here to the 4 stages in the Hinduism system, that explains when you were younger and moving into adolescence, your awareness of your sexuality didn't begin to manifest itself into those years. Those 12 to 18 years is when you began to have an awareness of that. And the cause of that is because those powers were essential to your growth, for your consciousness even to arise. Some individuals, and this will be interesting to know if this happened in your life, experience a negative consequence of when they become more sexually active in school, and how this also translates in a diminishment of your cognitive ability. to be able to perform at a high level. And again, pursue your studies to the best of your abilities with an absence of this prana. It's important to note here that the teachings, especially in this book, don't have a very axiomatic approach on whether or not this practice is bad for you. It says here that expressing your love and affections without overindulgence is not wrong. And it's about showing moderation. And I come at this from the perspective that the only sin, the only true evil in this world is ignorance. Okay? I'm sure many of my friends at school, or perhaps if you're a random bycomer on this channel, will certainly have your own opinions around whether or not I am lucid and sane or not. But the only sin for those individuals is not having an awareness that this is the reality, that people do practice continence, and that it can manifest itself in some of these energies. And if you are a skeptic, I would encourage you to try 30 days of continence for yourself, and you can tell me whether or not I'm sane or not. Moving on, by observing celibacy, we preserve not just physical energy alone, but mental, moral, intellectual, and ultimately spiritual energy. Those interested in moving forward in this pursuit must not be naive to the fact that you cannot have a conversation around this practice without acknowledging the spiritual aspect of it. It is so intimately related to what you're doing, and in fact it is the antithesis of sexuality. What is sexuality is related to spirituality. What's spirituality to sexuality? It's like the light and dark aspect, okay? You can't talk about cold without acknowledging hot. You can't acknowledge sex without acknowledging spirit. Sexual energy that is preserved gets transformed into a subtle energy called ojas, also known as personal magnetism. It tones the entire personality, builds the nervous system, improves brain function, and calms the mind. Again, those individuals who have been binge watching these benefit videos around this particular subject matters will be privy to this concept of being magnetic, particularly to women, and bringing them into your aura, so it would seem. And this is a consequence of this word ojas. There is a similar term in the English language which relates to this word called ozone. This relates to a time early in the morning before sunrise, between 4 and 6 o'clock, which is also known as the Brahmic time, or the time of the Divine One, where the energy in the atmosphere is very potent, and it begins to diminish after the sun rays begin to rise higher, or they begin to fall. It's a very sacred time to meditate, in fact. And when ojas is stored, it creates tejas. Tejas is the aura or glow. Many individuals reporting the fact that after a while they are glowing. Individuals commenting about, there's just something about you, there is a aura I cannot quite put my finger on. Something has changed in you. You are glowing. The Swami, Patanjali, actually comments here about one reporter acknowledging the fact that he's the Swami that makes people glow. And he in fact makes a caveat to that fact and notes that everyone can glow and transmit that energy when they preserve a lot of ojas. This isn't just the temperament of yogis, but if you are able to move forward with a lot of success in this practice, you will similarly see the manifestation of your glow, your aura increasing, your magnetism start to develop. Concluding here, my friends, this is why continence is a very important part of yoga. If a handful of people come forward with strong wills, nothing is impossible. And he notes here that one Buddha changed half the globe. one Jesus, 3/4 of the world. We all have that capacity within us. Let us know that the value of brahmacharya, that is certainly it will make us strong, happy, healthy, wealthy, and blissful. Just making reference again, this is a extraordinary valuable book, and I often consult it whenever I'm having challenges in my personal life, as Patanjali and his Yoga Sutras always offer me some chance for introspection to move forward in a way that is, again, in yoga, in union with the divine, with insert whichever synonym makes you feel more at home. God, nature, universe, they're the same thing. My friends, if you found this chat interesting, if you subscribe to whatever I've said here, subscribe to me, and I will see you again very soon.